Guten Tag, my gangrenous gang. Sugar Pants back at it with another moldy movie, and boy do I have the perfect end, not only to season 4, but to year 1 of the show. 1990's Frankenhooker, a festering, feculent foray for the senses from Frank Henenlotter, and this marks the second of his movies that I've taken a look at. It's about a misguided medical marvel who works to bring his fiancé back from the dead after she suffers a horrific accident. Go ahead and switch off the spooky parts of your brain, because this one is played for laughs. Morbid, monstrous, misogynistic laughs. But this one has Bill Murray's personal endorsement, so at least there's that. Boy, I've been waiting to get to this one, so let's throw out that sleaze docket and get right to it. We have 15 dead bodies, 1 cup blood, 18 naked breasts. There's actually a lot more, but I've only counted the ones attached to living humans. 1 naked butt, 2 purple nurples, 150 gallons, more or less, of bubbling purple science fluid. 1 brain in a jar, 1 scalpel to the brain, 1 mulched fiancé, 1 power drill to the skull, but it happened several times. 1 exploding guinea pig, 8 exploding hookers, actually 9, but 1 happens off screen. 3 exploding johns, and I don't mean the bathroom variety. 1 implied car smushing, 1 single punch decapitation, 1 machete decapitation, Grey's Anatomy porn, 1 giant pimp named Zorro, multiple baggies of crack, 1 baggie of super crack, 1 giant crack-fueled hooker party, 1 plate full of titties, 1 barrel full of legs, 1 shed that's way bigger on the inside, 3 Asian photography stereotypes, 1 freezer full of random reanimated hooker parts, and 1 forced transgender reassignment surgery. We begin by staring into a giant eyeball connected to a brain, and the jumpsuited dingbat doing an experiment. This is Jeffrey, an incredibly talented medical student doing experiments that his family doesn't seem to be at all amazed by. He's visiting his future in-laws during Dad's birthday. Mom carries some food out to the party, and we meet Elizabeth, Jeffrey's gorgeous fiancée. Unfortunately, it's the 90s and body shaming is still in style.
For your own good, ease up on the pretzels.
Hey, honey, come on, take a leg, will you?
Trouble? Nah, same old thing. Jeffrey's too strange and I'm too fat.
Seriously, how fucking scrawny were we as a nation in which this is unacceptable? That's when we find out Jeffrey's been kicked out of 3 medical schools, but she still trusted him to staple her stomach. Jeffrey accidentally kills his brain and finally joins the party. Dad blows out the candles and Elizabeth reveals the present Jeffrey made for him, a remote-controlled lawnmower. Elizabeth demonstrates the controls, but stupidly stands in front of the giant spinning blades and gets mulched. During the opening credits, we get all sorts of Grey's Anatomy sketches with lots of notes and Jeffrey muttering to himself about supplies, electrical jargon, and stuff like that. He kisses the photograph of Elizabeth's head at the top of the sketch and pops a tape into his VCR to rewatch the news report of his fiancée's death.
Like wood through a mulcher, the girthful fiancé...
Jesus. Even if she was fat, this is just being mean and unnecessary. The news report has a quote from the detective saying the body is basically one big jigsaw puzzle and parts are still missing. Jeffrey's mom comes in to see how he's doing and tries to get him to move on with his life. She says he should go out and try to meet someone new. That's when Jeffrey just lays it out for her.
I've lost the ability to distinguish between right from wrong, good from bad. I'm scared, Mom. I mean, I feel like sometimes I'm plunging headfirst into some kind of black void of sheer, utter madness or something.
Do you want a sandwich?
Once Mom leaves, Jeffrey slips out to his car and pops the trunk to show a lot of electrical equipment and a bag. He takes it to his garage, which, like the TARDIS, is way bigger on the inside.
That's because the TARDIS is dimensionally transcendental.
What does that mean?
It means that it's bigger inside than out.
Jeffrey turns on the equipment and goes to the freezer, which is full of magic purple science goo, and also Elizabeth's head and assorted parts. He sits those parts at a table and has dinner with it. He says that in 2 days there's a big storm predicted which will be perfect for his experiment. He reads her some sappy poetry and then puts her back in the goo. While finishing his notes, he suddenly gets hung up on the morality of having to kill another human being in order to get parts for his fiancé. To take his mind off of it, he turns on the news and we catch the weather report by Zachary.
We have some very exciting weather arriving here in about 2 days. More thunder and lightning and electricity than you've ever enjoyed before. Very spooky, very spooky. And just right for you mad doctors out there.
But he can't relax, so he decides to take drastic measures, drilling out the morality lobe of his brain.
Stewardesses.
Eventually, he has a stroke of genius. Prostitutes. Once he's cashed in his Christmas Club account, he heads down to the flesh farms and meat markets to scout the talent. He parks the car and a lady approaches to find out what he's looking for. He flashes some cash and the gal is ready to get in the car. But Jeffrey says he's actually wanting to throw a party with several girls. Another gal comes over and hears the plan, but tells the first girl she better check in with Zorro first. The two ladies lead Jeffrey to the bathroom of the nearby club to meet with their pimp, who just happens to be played by the same actor who was the overly friendly slab of beef from Brain Damage. While discussing the details, Jeffrey notices everyone smoking crack and Zorro's doling it out to his girls. He takes Jeffrey aside to discuss the deal, and Jeffrey asks for some drugs too. Jeffrey makes some super crack to help him take out the prostitutes, but starts losing his nerve. Time for another brain drill. He then morally argues that he's not killing the girls, he's just putting the drug near the girls. If they take it, that's not on him.
If they don't want to do it, they can just say no.
Whatever helps you sleep at night, I guess. Jeffrey then wheels in a guinea pig to test out the crack. After a few seconds, the poor thing explodes.
La muerte peluda. La muerte peluda.
Apparently that means it's a success because he goes ahead with the plan. Back at Hooker Central, Jeffrey heads to the designated hotel to play doctor with 9 girls, and we get a montage of body part inspections that I probably should cut for the most part. Eventually, Zorro stops by to wait for his girls to finish up. Upstairs, Jeffrey's starting to develop a guilty conscience without his drill. The girls demand their money, but they also find his stash of drugs. Suddenly, the ladies aren't so quick to want to leave. Jeffrey insists the drugs were only for the one girl he chose, but they hold him down and party it up. And we're going to cut this entire sequence for obvious reasons, but I'll try my best to describe it. The girls, cranked out of their brains, turn on music and start dancing in various stages of undress. Jeffrey begs them to stop smoking the crack, but they won't listen to him. Eventually, the girls start exploding, one by one, until Zorro comes up to see what all the screaming is about. He opens the door and gets knocked unconscious by a flying head to the face. And just so you know, 8 out of the 9 girls blow up in full frame and on camera. It's not the bloodbath you'd expect. It's mostly just smoke and sparks and screams. But eventually Jeffrey is left in a room full of smoldering body parts. He apologizes to them all and starts bagging up the parts, promising that he'll put them all back together just as soon as he gets Elizabeth finished first. He then makes a subtle, quiet escape with a trunk full of flesh. Back at his lab, he starts digging through the pieces and we get more magical science goo to glue and weld it all together. Eventually, he's got a fully formed body and it's time for Elizabeth's head. He then stores all the extra parts in the magic science goo so he can work on them later. A few final stitches, and the lightning storm approaches, and it's time for the ceiling hatch. Hey, did he have that installed before his wife was turned into ground chuck? If so, that's an amazing coincidence. We get the pseudo-science stuff that's been getting sci-fi fans hard for generations. And Elizabeth's body is raised through the roof. Immediately, the lightning rod is struck a few times, and purple and blue Ghostbuster effects blast through the garage. Jeffrey lowers the slab, and we see a cloaked Elizabeth standing.
Elizabeth.
Want a date? Going out? Looking for some action?
Honest to God, the best laugh of the movie right there. Since he doesn't have any cash, Elizabeth knocks Jeffrey unconscious and heads downtown. But apparently some of the electricity caused some other issues as the cooler full of hooker parts starts a-rockin'. Eventually, Jeffrey comes to, rightfully assumes his fiancée is heading back to her body's old life, and heads into town to find her. Elizabeth immediately starts asking every man on the street if they want a date, and my favorite part about her is every word she says is a line that was previously uttered by the prostitutes before they went all explodey. Eventually, she finds this hilarious fellow. She takes him upstairs and gets to work, and that's when we find out it's not just her hair that turned purple from the procedure. But I can't show you what I'm referring to. In fact, I pretty much can't show you this entire next sequence. Let's just say Elizabeth is a hot fuck, and the poor old guy explodes.
Oh, that was wonderful.
Elizabeth takes her cash and leaves the smoldering remains in the room. That's when she runs into an idiot who's never heard the advice that you don't kiss a prostitute, especially immediately following a meeting with a client. And we get another exploding John. Jeffrey arrives at the subway entrance and starts asking around if anyone's seen a purple girl. Eventually, he makes it to Hooker Point. He starts asking around, but some of the girls assume he had something to do with Zorro's girls all getting killed, and he's chased away. Eventually, Elizabeth makes it to Zorro's favorite bar. Hey, look, it's the boom mic operator. Hi, Neil Danziger. Inside, Zorro is very upset at losing all his girls, but the guy he's confiding in is more interested in the patchwork girl walking in.
Pretzel's good. Fire back!
Zorro recognizes some of the things she's saying and watches as the other guy takes her to a corner booth. But he's another guy who's never heard the do's and do nots of prostitutes and goes downtown. He's promptly electrocuted and explodes, sending panicked bar patrons for the hills. Zorro confronts Elizabeth and eventually takes her head off with one hell of a jab.
Fatality.
Now anyone who wasn't convinced to leave earlier is scrambling for the door. Jeffrey arrives just then, reattaches her head, and takes Elizabeth home, but Zorro is hot on his heels. Back at the garage, Elizabeth gets a new set of neck bolts and clamps. Jeffrey gives her a quick jump start, and she's back to life, and also has her own personality back. At first, she's very impressed at what Jeffrey's done and wonders what this will mean for the world, but he admits that his formula for life is estrogen-based, so he can only revive women. And then suddenly, Elizabeth is not too thrilled when she finds out what's happened to her.
These aren't my arms. This isn't my hand. These aren't my legs. This isn't my breast.
And you may ask yourself, these aren't my arms. And you may ask yourself, these aren't my breasts. And you may find yourself in a large automobile. Just then Zorro shows up to get his revenge and takes Jeffrey's head clean off.
Fatality.
He calls out the names of all of his girls, but unfortunately for him, the parts respond. The cooler starts rocking around and tips over, spilling all sorts of purple goo and random body parts. Some have even combined and formed new horrible creations. Holy shit, this movie just took a hard right turn. The basket case-looking creatures drag Zorro into the cooler and make sure to grab his last baggie of crack before slamming the lid on a truly horrific fate I don't even want to think about for more than a couple of seconds. The scene fades and we come back to Dr. Elizabeth reviving Jeffrey. She says his notes were very detailed and she was able to bring him back to life. Unfortunately, because his serum only works on women, she had to use female body parts. And obviously, I can't show you the big punchline reveal, so just imagine Jeffrey's head on a patchwork woman's body. And that's Frankenhooker, folks. Another quality, trashy film from Frank Henenlotter. Which I guess means I'll eventually have to get to Basket Case at some point. Not that I've been avoiding it or anything like that, but you would be amazed at how many tapes I've got sitting in my musty old basement. If I just went for the movies I actually wanted to watch, I'd probably have much fewer episodes. James Lorenz played our screwy surgeon Jeffrey, but he got his start in the body horror classic Street Trash. And I'll be doing that one soon, by the way. He's had a modest bit of success in the movie industry, but I gotta be honest, the first time I watched Frankenhooker, I seriously thought he was Andrew McCarthy. I mean, the two guys look amazingly similar. Patty Mullen played our titular patchwork prostitute, Elizabeth, who stole the entire last half hour of the movie. Her electronic tics and brash delivery of lines just had me in stitches. Unfortunately, Patty only has a couple of credits to her name, with her first movie being Doom Asylum. Very unfortunate, because I really wanted to see her in more movies. She was also August 1986's Penthouse Pet of the Month. And I just realized, this is the second season finale in a row with a Henenlotter film. It's just a coincidence, but a fun one at that. So let's line up that end of season sleaze docket and see how number 4 stacks up. We had 55 dead bodies, 94 cups blood, 58 naked breasts, 17 naked butts, and 14 naked bajingos. Now normally this is where I would compare this season to the previous 3 seasons, but this is a special episode as it's the final one of the year, so I'm going to switch things up and give us the end of year sleaze docket! We had 177 dead bodies, 305 cups blood, 162 naked breasts, 34 naked butts, and 21 naked bajingos. That is a lot of blood, bodies, and boobies. And I want to thank each and every one of you who has watched my show over the course of the year. It was a lot of work, but if you found it entertaining, then it was well worth it. But never fear, kiddies, because there is no shortage of schlock in the cellar. 2023 is just around the corner, and with it comes a whole new year of basement tapes. So it's time for me to take a nap and get prepared for the next year of filth and festivity, rottenness and revelry, garbage and glee. And I hope to see all you carnal cretins back for more feculent fun in the new year. And until then, this is your horrific Harlequin Sugar Pants. See you in your dreams.
Need some company? Going out? Want a date?